Have you ever noticed how the little things you use to brush off start to feel bigger as you get older? Maybe it's forgetting where you put your glasses when they're right on the table, or suddenly blanking on the name of a neighbor you've known for years. It can feel unsettling, almost like your mind is slipping a little faster than you'd like. And if you're past 70, you might even wonder if this is just part of aging, or if there's something you can actually do about it. The truth is, while age does bring changes to our brains, doctors now know that many of the habits we carry into our 70s and beyond have a powerful effect on how sharp, clear, and strong our minds remain. And here's the important part. Some of those habits may seem harmless, even comforting, but over time they can quietly work against your brain's health. Imagine carrying around a backpack full of small stones. Each stone doesn't feel heavy at first, but together, day after day, they weigh you down. The same goes for these little daily choices. That's why it's so important to recognize what to let go of. Stopping certain routines after 70 can lift that hidden weight and give your brain a chance to breathe, to stay active, and to protect the memories and wisdom you've gathered over a lifetime. You've worked too hard, lived too much, and seen too many beautiful moments to let your independence fade away because of something as simple as a habit you didn't know was hurting you. One of the first things doctors often point to is sleep, or rather, how easy it is to neglect it. You might think, well, I'm retired now. I don't need to worry about strict bedtimes anymore. So you stay up late, maybe watching television, scrolling through your phone, or letting yourself drift into an irregular routine. But here's the problem. Once you hit your 70s, your brain needs sleep more than ever. It's during those deep hours of rest that your brain clears out toxins, repairs itself, and organizes memories. Without enough of it, you may find yourself waking up groggy, struggling to recall small details, or even feeling your mood change in ways you can't explain. Some people even brush it off as just old age, when in reality, the culprit is sleep deprivation sneaking into their nights. Think about how you feel after just one night of restless sleep. Maybe your thoughts move slower, or you get irritated at little things. Now imagine that happening over and over, quietly stealing your sharpness without you realizing it. Doctors warn that this not only increases the risk of memory loss, but it can also speed up the development of dementia. So even though it might feel like a small thing, whether you go to bed at 11 or 1 in the morning, it's not small to your brain. Creating a steady rhythm, giving yourself at least 7 to 8 hours of true rest, is like giving your mind fresh air every night. Another habit that can quietly chip away at your brain's strength is skipping meals, or worse, replacing them with processed, sugary foods. You may not feel as hungry as you once did, and that's normal with age, but the brain thrives on steady, balanced nutrition. When you skip breakfast, for example, your blood sugar drops, and your brain runs low on the very fuel it needs to think clearly. And when you replace that fuel with cookies, soda, or heavily processed snacks, it gives you a quick burst, but leaves you crashing, unfocused, and tired. Doctors have noticed that many older adults fall into this cycle. They eat lightly or skip meals, then rely on quick snacks to keep them going. It feels convenient, but it's like putting cheap gasoline into a car that's meant to run on premium. Over time, the engine begins to sputter. In the same way, your brain struggles to perform at its best without the right nourishment. I once heard a story about a woman named Ruth, who at 74 began forgetting the simplest things, her bank pin, the plot of a movie she'd just watched, even conversations she'd had that morning. Her family worried it was dementia, but when doctors looked deeper, they found her diet was mostly tea, toast, and the occasional sweet. Once she began eating real meals again, fruits, vegetables, protein, and healthy fats, her energy and memory slowly began to return. It wasn't magic. It was simply giving her brain what it had been starved of for months. So if you find yourself reaching for crackers instead of lunch, or skipping dinner because you're not that hungry, pause and remember that your brain is always hungry for fuel. It doesn't need much, but it needs the right kind. Even something as simple as a small bowl of oatmeal in the morning or a piece of salmon with vegetables at night can make a remarkable difference in how sharp you feel. And here's another habit many don't realize is harmful: letting yourself drift into isolation. It can happen so easily. Maybe your friends don't live nearby anymore, or your children are busy with their own families. You might feel like it's less trouble to keep to yourself, spend the day reading or watching television, rather than putting in the effort to socialize. But loneliness is one of the heaviest weights your brain can carry. Doctors now see isolation as just as dangerous to your mind as smoking is to your lungs. Why? Because the brain thrives on stimulation, on conversation, on laughter, and even on the little frustrations that come from interacting with others. When those moments disappear, the brain slows down. It loses its daily workout. Think about it. Have you ever felt that spark after talking to an old friend, or the warmth of sharing a story with someone who truly listened? Those moments are not just emotional, they're neurological exercise. They keep your memory pathways alive. Without them, the brain becomes like a quiet, unused room. Dust begins to gather, and over time it becomes harder and harder to sweep it clean. It doesn't have to be big or complicated. A short phone call, joining a community group, chatting with a neighbor about the weather. These small interactions can mean more to your brain than you might imagine. The important part is not letting silence become your constant companion. So as you sit here watching this, think about your own routines. Do you stay up too late, telling yourself it doesn't matter anymore? Do you let meals slip away, replacing them with something easy but empty? Do you let days pass in silence without the joy of sharing words with someone else? If so, you're not alone. These are common habits, ones that sneak into many lives after 70. But the good news is, each of them can be changed gently, step by step, in ways that breathe life back into your brain. It's surprising how the smallest routines, the ones we hardly even notice anymore, can slowly shape the way our brains age. After 70, the difference between staying sharp and feeling foggy often comes down to little daily choices. We've already touched on how sleep, diet, and connection with others can either protect your memory or quietly steal from it. But doctors have uncovered even more patterns that might seem harmless at first glance, yet slowly wear down the brain's ability to keep up with you. And one of these is sitting too much. Now, you might be thinking, of course I sit more than I used to. I've earned the right to rest. And that's true. After decades of work and responsibilities, you deserve comfort. But here's the tricky part. Long hours of sitting day after day can slowly weaken not only your muscles and bones, but also your brain. Physical movement isn't just about keeping your body flexible. It directly affects your mind. When you move, your heart pumps more blood, carrying oxygen and nutrients straight to the brain. That's what keeps those neural pathways alive and responsive. Think of it like watering a garden. If the water stops flowing, the flowers wilt, no matter how beautiful they once were. In the same way, without movement, your brain can become starved of the nourishment it craves. You don't need to run marathons or lift heavy weights. Even simple activities like walking around the block, stretching gently in the morning, or standing up every half hour to move your arms and legs act like fresh water for your brain's garden. Doctors warn that staying in a chair or on the couch for hours can double your risk of cognitive decline. But here's the beautiful truth. The opposite is also true. Even light, regular movement can slow down memory loss and boost your mood. I once met an older gentleman named Harold. He was 81 and lived alone after his wife passed. He told me he often felt his thoughts slowed down, almost like moving through fog. His doctor encouraged him to take short walks in the park, just 15 minutes a day. Within weeks, he said, not only did he feel stronger in his body, but conversations became easier and he remembered things more clearly. That simple walk was like a reset button for his brain. Another hidden danger comes from ignoring stress. You may not think of stress as something older adults struggle with, but it sneaks in differently than it did when you were younger. Instead of work deadlines or raising children, stress might come from health concerns, financial worries, or simply the frustration of depending on others more than you'd like. The brain doesn't care what the source is, it reacts the same way, flooding your body with stress hormones that over time damage memory and shrink important areas like the hippocampus, which is vital for learning and recalling information. Sometimes stress becomes so familiar we don't even realize it's there. Maybe you notice a tightness in your chest or a constant restlessness, and you chalk it up to just aging. But doctors know these are signs your brain is under pressure. Left unchecked, chronic stress carves deep grooves into your mental health, making it harder to stay focused or even enjoy the small pleasures of life. That's why finding ways to release stress is not just a luxury, it's medicine for your brain. This doesn't mean you have to sit cross-legged meditating for hours unless you want to. It can be as simple as deep breathing while you sip your morning tea, listening to music that makes you smile, tending to plants, or even calling someone who makes you laugh. These little acts tell your brain you are safe, you can relax. Over time, that calm state becomes protection, like a shield against the slow erosion of memory. Now let's talk about another surprising culprit, multitasking. You may have prided yourself on juggling many things at once back in your working years, cooking dinner while answering the phone, paying bills while watching television, tidying up while holding a conversation. But after 70, multitasking is not the friend it once seemed to be. Doctors explain that the brain naturally processes information more slowly with age. When you push it to handle several tasks at once, instead of speeding things up, it creates confusion and increases the chances of mistakes and forgetfulness. Have you ever walked into a room only to forget why you went there? Often that's because your mind was split in too many directions at once. Multitasking scatters your focus, and the older brain has a harder time gathering those scattered pieces back together. Instead, giving your full attention to one thing at a time acts like exercise for your mind. Imagine your brain as a flashlight. When the light shines in too many directions, everything looks dim. But when you focus that beam on just one spot, it becomes clear and bright. So rather than flipping through your mail while watching television or half listening to someone while checking your phone, give yourself the gift of focus. You'll notice not only that tasks become easier, but your memory of them becomes stronger. I once spoke with a woman named Clara who admitted she always tried to keep busy by doing many things at once. She thought it kept her sharp, but she found herself constantly losing track, forgetting if she'd taken her pills, misplacing her glasses, leaving the kettle on. Her doctor suggested she slow down, to approach one task at a time. At first, she resisted, saying it made her feel unproductive, but after a few weeks, she was amazed at how much calmer and more confident she felt. She told me, "It's like my brain finally has space to breathe again." Each of these habits, sitting too much, holding on to stress, and multitasking, might seem small on their own, but they stack up, quietly weakening the brain's resilience. The good news is, you don't have to change everything overnight. The simple act of noticing these patterns is the first step toward protecting your mind. From there, little adjustments, like standing up more often, finding moments of peace, or focusing on one task at a time, begin to build a new rhythm. A rhythm where your brain feels lighter, more awake, and better able to hold on to the memories that make you who you are. It's a little humbling, isn't it? To realize that protecting your brain after 70 isn't about some complicated medical routine or expensive treatment, but more about the daily patterns we choose. Each small choice either strengthens those precious connections in your mind or slowly wears them away. And sometimes the most dangerous habits are the ones that feel so ordinary we don't even question them anymore. Take alcohol, for example. A glass of wine with dinner, a little whiskey on the weekends. Many people think of it as harmless, even good for relaxation. And yes, in small amounts, some doctors once believed it had certain benefits. But research now shows that after 70, the brain becomes far more sensitive to alcohol's effects. That same glass that once left you simply mellow can now linger in your system, slowing down reflexes, clouding judgment, and interfering with the way brain cells communicate with one another. Over time, even light drinking can chip away at memory and increase the risk of dementia. I remember speaking with an older couple who had enjoyed wine with dinner their entire marriage. In their 60s, it didn't seem to cause any harm, but as they entered their 70s, the husband began to notice he had trouble focusing, and his wife started feeling unusually forgetful after evenings when they drank. Their doctor gently suggested they cut back, even replacing their wine ritual with sparkling water or herbal tea. Within a few months, both noticed sharper mornings and fewer foggy evenings. It wasn't an easy change because rituals become so comforting, but once they realized how much lighter their minds felt, they never looked back. Another habit that quietly damages the brain is neglecting hydration. You might not think of water as brain fuel, but that's exactly what it is. As you age, your body's sense of thirst becomes less reliable. You might not feel thirsty even when your body desperately needs fluid. That means many older adults walk around mildly dehydrated most of the time, and the brain suffers for it. Dehydration shrinks brain tissue, slows down the flow of oxygen and nutrients, and makes you more prone to confusion or forgetfulness. Some doctors even say mild dehydration can mimic the symptoms of dementia, yet it's something as simple as not drinking enough water. I once met a 78-year-old woman named Joyce who complained of frequent dizziness and moments of confusion. Her family feared the worst. But after a simple test, her doctor discovered she was drinking less than 3 cups of liquid a day. With gentle reminders to sip water regularly, her clarity returned. Imagine that, something so basic making such a difference. Sometimes it's not about what you drink, but about what you keep out. Sugary sodas, overly sweetened teas, or juices may feel refreshing, but they set your brain on a roller coaster. First a burst of energy, then a sharp crash that leaves you more tired and unfocused than before. Doctors recommend replacing at least some of these with plain water, or if you like flavor, a slice of lemon or cucumber. It doesn't take much, but the brain feels the difference almost immediately. And then there's one more habit that often goes unnoticed: neglecting mental exercise. It's easy to think that once you retire, your brain gets to retire too. After all, you've spent a lifetime solving problems, managing responsibilities, and keeping up with the fast pace of life. But the brain isn't like a machine that wears out with use. It's more like a muscle that stays strong the more you work it. When you stop giving it challenges, it begins to weaken. You may have heard the phrase "use it or lose it," and nowhere is that truer than in brain health. Doctors often see that older adults who continue to read, learn, play games, or engage in hobbies stay sharper longer. It's not about doing something complicated, it's about keeping the spark alive. Think of it like keeping a fire burning in the hearth. If you stop adding wood, the flames die down and soon there's only ash. But if you keep feeding it, even just a little at a time, the fire stays warm and bright. I once visited a community centre where a group of retirees gathered every week to play chess and solve puzzles together. One man in his late 70s told me that his memory had actually improved since joining. He laughed and said, "My kids thought I'd come here to socialize, but I'm really here to sharpen my brain. I can beat them at card games again." That joy in his eyes was proof that the brain can still grow, still strengthen, no matter the age, so long as you keep it engaged. It doesn't have to be puzzles or games if that's not your style. Maybe it's learning to paint, picking up a new instrument, or even teaching yourself how to use new technology. The important thing is to stretch your mind gently, just enough to remind it that life still holds fresh challenges and discoveries. So when you think about your days, ask yourself, are you reaching for that extra drink out of habit? Are you letting hours pass without a sip of water? Are you giving your brain new wood to burn or letting the fire dim? These choices, simple as they seem, are the threads that weave together your mental health. And the beautiful truth is that it's never too late to adjust the pattern. With every small shift, you are not only protecting your memory, you are honoring the years of wisdom and experience that deserve to shine brightly for many more to come. It's often the little patterns, the ones we hardly think about, that shape the health of our minds. By the time we reach 70, we've carried a lifetime of habits with us, some that nourish the brain, and some that slowly wear it down without us even realizing. We've already touched on things like alcohol, hydration, and the need to keep the mind engaged. But there are still more hidden routines that doctors say can quietly take a toll on memory, focus, and even the joy we feel in daily life. One of those habits is neglecting regular health checkups. It might seem unrelated to brain health at first. After all, a yearly doctor's visit is often thought of as just checking blood pressure, cholesterol, or making sure the heart is working properly. But the truth is, many conditions that affect the body end up affecting the brain too. High blood pressure, diabetes, thyroid issues, and even simple vitamin deficiencies can cause confusion, memory loss, and mental fog. I once spoke with a man named Leonard, who at 75 started forgetting conversations and appointments. His family feared the early stages of dementia, but when he finally went in for a checkup, the doctor discovered his blood sugar levels had been unstable, affecting his brain. With medication and some dietary adjustments, Leonard's memory improved dramatically. Imagine that a simple checkup revealed that his forgetfulness wasn't permanent decline, but something that could be treated. Skipping regular visits, ignoring symptoms, or brushing off changes as just aging is like ignoring a leak in the roof because you don't want to deal with the repair. Left unattended, the damage spreads, but when caught early, so many of these issues can be managed, protecting not just your physical health but your brain's clarity too. Another hidden danger is relying too heavily on medication without reviewing it. As we age, the number of prescriptions often increases. One pill for blood pressure, another for sleep, another for pain. Before long, the list grows. What many people don't realize is that certain medications, especially when mixed, can cause side effects that mimic memory loss or even accelerate cognitive decline. Some sleep aids, for example, may help you drift off but leave you groggy the next day, slowing your reaction time and clouding your thoughts. Some pain medications can dull not only the body's discomfort, but also the brain's alertness, and when several are taken together, the effects can overlap in ways even you may not notice at first. That's why doctors recommend reviewing your medications regularly, asking whether each one is still necessary or if there are safer alternatives. I once knew a woman named Irene who struggled with constant mental fog. She worried it was dementia, but after a careful review, her doctor adjusted her prescriptions. Within weeks, she felt more awake, more herself. It wasn't her brain that was failing, it was the medication cocktail weighing it down. It takes courage to ask questions about prescriptions, especially when you've trusted them for years. But asking doesn't mean doubting your doctor, it means advocating for your own clarity. And every question you ask is another step toward protecting the mind you've worked so hard to keep. Now let's talk about another surprisingly harmful pattern, withdrawing from new experiences. It's natural to want comfort as we age, to stick with routines we know well, the same chair, the same meals, the same television shows, the same circle of people. Familiarity feels safe, but the brain, much like a muscle, thrives on novelty. When you stop exposing yourself to new experiences, it's like telling your brain it no longer needs to grow. Think of a time you traveled somewhere new, even just a nearby town, or tried a new recipe or learned a new song. Do you remember how alive your mind felt in those moments? That's because novelty wakes up different parts of the brain, creating fresh pathways and strengthening memory. Without it, those pathways fade. I met a man named George in his late 70s who told me he never left his house except for groceries. He watched the same shows, ate the same meals, and avoided social outings because they felt like too much effort. Over time, he noticed his memories slipping and his world feeling smaller. His granddaughter invited him to join her in a painting class, and though reluctant at first, he agreed. To his surprise, he not only enjoyed the class but also felt a spark he hadn't felt in years. He laughed, he learned, and most importantly, his brain began to feel alive again. That one new experience opened a door to others, and slowly he began to reclaim his sharpness. So whether it's trying a new hobby, tasting a new dish, meeting new people, or simply walking a different path in the park, novelty is medicine for the brain. It doesn't have to be big or overwhelming, just a little shift is enough to remind your mind that life is still unfolding, and there's always something new to explore. And then there's perhaps the quietest but most dangerous habit of all: ignoring mental health, depression, anxiety, grief. These are not just emotions, they change the very chemistry of the brain. Yet too often, older adults feel they should tough it out, or they mistake these struggles for normal aging. They say, of course I'm sad, I'm old. or it's just the way life is now. But doctors know untreated depression and anxiety can double the risk of cognitive decline. Your brain is not separate from your feelings, it is shaped by them. If you carry sadness like a heavy stone day after day, it weighs on your memory, your focus, your energy. I once heard the story of a woman named Evelyn who lost her husband of 50 years. After his passing, she became quiet, withdrawn, and forgetful. Her family feared dementia, but in truth, she was carrying unspoken grief. With counseling and support, her memory and clarity returned. It wasn't her brain fading, it was her heart needing care. Caring for mental health is as vital as caring for the body. Talking to a friend, joining a support group, speaking with a professional, these are not signs of weakness, but acts of courage. They tell your brain and your heart, you are not alone, and you deserve lightness again. So as you look at your own routines, ask yourself, do you brush off doctor visits? Do you take medications without review? Do you avoid new experiences or carry heavy emotions in silence? These habits may seem quiet, even invisible, but over time they leave deep marks on the brain. And the choice to release them is not just about living longer. It's about living brighter, clearer, and with more joy in the years you have. The older we get, the more precious every moment of clarity becomes. Our memories, our stories, our wisdom, they are treasures that deserve to be protected. By now you've seen how habits as simple as sleep, nutrition, movement, hydration, social connection, and mental exercise can either protect or threaten the brain after 70. But there are still a few more patterns that doctors caution us to let go of because, even though they might feel small, they can quietly weaken the mind over time. One of those is ignoring hearing and vision problems. You might not think poor eyesight or trouble hearing has much to do with the brain, but they are deeply connected. When your eyes or ears aren't giving clear signals, the brain has to work harder to fill in the gaps. That extra strain leaves fewer resources for memory, focus, and problem solving. Over time, this constant effort can accelerate cognitive decline. I once knew a man named Walter who resisted getting hearing aids. He said they made him feel old, but his family noticed he withdrew from conversations, missing jokes or avoiding gatherings because it was too exhausting to keep asking people to repeat themselves. When he finally tried hearing aids, he not only rejoined conversations, but also found his memory improved. His doctor explained that when the ears work properly, the brain is freed to do its real job, storing and recalling information. The same goes for vision. Struggling to read, bumping into furniture, or squinting at faces doesn't just affect your eyes, it taxes your brain. Glasses, eye exams, and treatments for cataracts or glaucoma are not vanity, they're lifelines for keeping your brain sharp. Because when you can see and hear clearly, the world stays open, stimulating, and alive. Another habit that quietly erodes brain health is spending too much time in passive activities. Watching television for hours, scrolling endlessly through the phone, or sitting in silence with little engagement may feel restful, but the brain interprets it as idleness. Unlike active hobbies, reading, crafting, gardening, or even light conversation, passive activities don't provide the stimulation the brain needs. Doctors say it's not about giving up television altogether, but about balancing it. Instead of letting the screen fill your entire evening, try pairing it with something active. Knit while you watch, jot down thoughts in a journal during commercials, or call a friend afterward to chat about what you saw. These small shifts turn passive time into active engagement, keeping the mind awake rather than letting it drift. Then there's the often overlooked habit of neglecting gratitude and optimism. It may sound like a simple attitude, but doctors and psychologists alike agree that positive thinking has a direct impact on the brain. When you dwell constantly on regrets, fears, or frustrations, the brain becomes wired for stress. But when you cultivate gratitude, even for small things like a sunrise, a phone call, or the taste of morning coffee, you activate pathways that protect memory and resilience. I remember a woman named Helen who kept a small notebook on her kitchen table. Every morning, she wrote down 3 things she was grateful for. At first, she struggled to think of more than "I woke up today." But over time, her list grew longer. Birds outside the window, a kind word from her neighbor, her favorite song on the radio. She told me that the practice lifted her mood and cleared her mind. And her doctor noticed it too. Her blood pressure improved, her stress lowered, and her memory lapses became less frequent. Gratitude wasn't just a feeling, it was medicine for her brain. So often we think of brain health only in terms of what we eat or how much we exercise. But our thoughts, our perspective, our willingness to seek joy, all of these are powerful protectors too. When you step back and look at the bigger picture, it becomes clear. Protecting your brain after 70 isn't about making one huge change. It's about gently letting go of the habits that hold you back and replacing them with choices that give your mind space to breathe. Prioritizing sleep, eating real meals, staying hydrated, moving your body, engaging your mind, connecting with others, asking for help when you need it. These are not chores. They are gifts you give yourself, and they ripple outward to everyone who loves you. You've lived too many years, built too many memories, and gathered too much wisdom to let preventable habits steal your clarity. Every small step you take now is a way of honoring your past and protecting your future, because the truth is, the brain doesn't stop growing, it doesn't stop changing, and with the right care, it can remain a source of joy, connection, and purpose long after 70. So as you finish this video, take a quiet moment to think about which of these habits might be present in your own life. Don't judge yourself, don't feel regret. Instead, see it as an invitation, a chance to release what no longer serves you and to embrace what will keep your mind strong, sharp, and full of light. Remember, your brain is the home of your story. And your story is far from over. There are still conversations to have, laughter to share, sunsets to watch, and moments to treasure. By choosing wisely today, you are ensuring that your mind will be there to meet those moments fully, with clarity and joy. And if this message has touched you, take a moment to share your own thoughts below. Sometimes your story, your wisdom, or even your small piece of advice can be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And don't forget to subscribe so we can keep sharing these journeys together. Here's to a mind that stays bright, a heart that stays open, and a life that continues to be full of meaning, no matter the number of candles on the cake. When you think about it, the brain is more than an organ. It's a library, a living, breathing collection of stories, voices, faces, and lessons gathered across the years. Every laugh you've shared, every tear you've shed, every person you've loved, they're all there, carefully stored in the shelves of your mind. And after 70, protecting that library becomes one of the most important gifts you can give yourself. By now we've uncovered the habits doctors warn us about: poor sleep, skipped meals, loneliness, sitting too long, stress, multitasking, too much alcohol, dehydration, neglecting mental exercise, skipping checkups, medication overload, avoiding new experiences, ignoring emotional health, and even forgetting to care for our hearing, vision, and outlook on life. Each one seems so small on its own, but together they form a web that can weigh the brain down. Letting go of them is not about restriction, it's about freedom. Freedom for your mind to feel lighter, clearer, and more alive. But there's something even more powerful that doctors and researchers often emphasize, something that ties all of this together: purpose. Having a reason to get up in the morning, a sense that your days matter, is like fuel for the brain. Without it, life can feel like it drifts into repetition, and the mind begins to quiet down. With it, every day becomes another page in your story, something worth remembering and holding on to. I once spoke with a man named Samuel, 83 years old, who volunteered at a community garden. He told me that even on days when his joints ached and his energy was low, the thought of tending to the plants and greeting his neighbors gave him strength. "It's not just about me," he said. "It's about what I can still give." His doctor believed that this sense of purpose, more than any medication, was what kept his memory sharp and his spirit bright. Purpose doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to mean volunteering, traveling, or creating something big. It can be as simple as reading bedtime stories to your grandchildren, baking bread for a neighbor, or even tending to a houseplant with care. The brain thrives when it feels connected to meaning, and that meaning is yours to define. Of course, living with purpose also means embracing kindness, not just for others, but for yourself. Too often we carry regrets about the past or worries about the future, and we forget to simply appreciate the present. Doctors say mindfulness, paying attention to the here and now, protects the brain in powerful ways. It calms the nervous system, lowers stress hormones, and strengthens the areas responsible for focus and memory. Try it now, even as you sit here listening. Take a deep breath, feel the chair beneath you. Notice the rhythm of your heart, steady and faithful. Listen to the sounds around you, the hum of the room, the quiet of the morning, or perhaps the birds outside your window. This moment, simple as it is a reminder. Your brain is not only alive, but thriving right now. So when you think of all the habits to release, remember that what you're really doing is making space. Space for better sleep, space for nourishing food, space for laughter with friends, space for movement, learning, gratitude, and purpose. Each small choice is like clearing a path through a forest, letting sunlight reach the ground again, and before long, new growth appears, brighter, stronger, and more beautiful than you expected. You may sometimes worry it's too late, that the years behind you matter more than the years ahead. But the brain has an incredible gift. It can change, adapt, and grow at any age. Science calls it neuroplasticity, but you can think of it simply as resilience. Just as a scarred tree can still bloom, so too can your mind continue to flourish, no matter your age. So take this message with you today. Stop the habits that weigh your brain down and choose the ones that let it breathe. Not out of fear, but out of love for yourself, for your family, and for the life you still have to live. Because the truth is, there are still stories left in you, still laughter to be shared, still lessons only you can teach. And if you've been sitting here nodding, feeling some of these words resonate deep inside, then know this, you are not alone. Millions of others your age are walking this same path, making the same small changes, choosing to protect the treasure of their minds. Together, each step forward is like lighting a candle in the dark, and the more candles we light, the brighter the world becomes. So let's end on this note. Here's to clarity that lasts, to memories that shine, and to the courage to let go of what no longer serves you. Your brain is your story, and your story still has so many chapters waiting to be written. And as always, if this message brought you comfort or inspiration, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Share a habit you've decided to let go of, or a new choice you're excited to make. Your words may become the spark that helps someone else protect their own mind. Take care of yourself, keep your light bright, and remember, you are proof that a sharp mind and a warm heart can last a lifetime.